what are we talking about here? What is sextortion and what is it?
This is very sad because the victims tend to be innocent people that all they were looking for was company, a little bit of conversation, perhaps a little bit of romance. So the way it goes is this. A lone male, quite often is a lone female, will go into a legitimate introduction website to find someone to communicate with, perhaps to date with later on. They will speak to someone that they believe is a kind, nice, trustworthy individual. Nothing untoward will going on. They will give out a lot of information. They will tell that person over perhaps a period of a number of weeks. They will tell them about what they do, about the job, where they work, sometimes about the children, about the family, about personal circumstances. And then the conversation would move on a little bit. The next step would perhaps be meeting over Skype. And again, the person on the other side will be not the person, the individual from Britain believe it to be. They will have a little bit of conversation, and again, after a week or two, things will heat up a little bit, and there will be some intimate conversations, perhaps use of a webcam to perform sex acts, which is absolutely fine. But what the person here in Britain will realize is that the other person is not the person they believe it to be, and that the whole conversation and the viewing is being recorded. So shortly after the recording, perhaps 10-15 minutes after the conversation, typically the victim will receive an email, and the email will say, hey, have a look at that. And then there will be a link to that highly intimate video where the victim just performed sexual act on themselves. And quite often the video will be accompanied with titles, including the victim's name, quite often the victim's address, the telephone number, sometimes the name of the children, where they work, and very shortly after there will be a demand for payment. So the amount of payment would quite often depend on the circumstances of the victim, that now the criminals know so much about them, they know where they work, they know what they do, they know what income they receive, so it could vary from hundreds to many thousands of pounds. The option now is either you pay it, or we will spread the video over the internet. We will make sure that it is everywhere, and it will become very difficult for you to do anything about it. You can imagine the stress and the embarrassment and the absolute devastation by the victim. So the victim hasn't got a lot of time. They got perhaps minutes, or they feel they have got minutes to make a big decision. Do they pay out, or do they do anything else? Quite often they pay out, and then nobody hears about the case ever again. Other times they pay out and still they would receive additional demands for payment. But some victims decided they're not going to pay. They either contact the police or they contact someone such as myself, and we will take on the case. Now the question is, how do they transfer payment? It's going to be a bank there. So more often than not, payment is being made via PayPal, and this is a thing where the problem is. You know, we always say, Joe, you got to follow the money, and it seems that the problem here is with the ease by which those criminals can set up a bank account with PayPal and have money transferred to it.
What about PayPal? You know, they have a great end-user agreement. What is it, EULA? They have a great one. Supposedly, at one point in time, they were owned by eBay. I think they eventually went their own ways. But can't the legal measures be taken up with them? Shouldn't they have this department specifically dedicated to fraud or illicit activities?
Well, it should in theory. Now, first, you can imagine the devastation. I mean, any of your listeners can just try and imagine the devastation, the embarrassment. People committed suicide as a result of this. So the state of mind is just, I want this to go away as quickly as possible, and I don't want anyone to know anything about it. So the last thing quite often on the mind of the victim is, let's see, how we can get our money back from PayPal, because of course they are victims and they are scared and they are worried. They are worried because there is, videos of them performing sexual acts on themselves at the hands of the criminals. Now, from a victim point of view, they are worried that if PayPal gets in touch or does a chargeback for the account with the criminals or from the criminals, then there could be horrible consequences where the criminal will take revenge and repost those videos. And God knows where these videos are going to end up.
Sure. So it's a difficult situation for everyone. And how many people are we talking about here? Just one, two people, a day, a week, a month, a year? What are the numbers?
It's very difficult to tell, as you can imagine. So we know, and I'm actually surprised that there have been 800 or 900 people that reported this sort of sextortion last year to the police. They must be very, very brave. We would look after dozens each year in all different ways. Quite often, even after they pay, there's still traces of the information that needs to be gotten rid of the internet. So I would think we're talking about thousands of people. Perhaps 2,000 to 3,000, I reckon.
Well, that's definitely no small number. And if you use the numbers that you talked about going to the police, you said 700 or 800, then obviously this number should be significantly higher. Where are these people coming out of? Where are the criminals operating out of? Is it Asia or is it, do we know?
This is an old crime. So it is kind of moving geographically, So there used to be in Morocco. There used to be a lot of these cases 2-3 years ago coming from Morocco. For some reason, we managed to trace them. Then we had the Philippines. Then we had a few cases coming from Eastern Europe. I think it is it is a moving crime. There's no particular. What seemed to be in common is the ease by which these individuals are able to set up the bank accounts and then just move on.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment then, because it shouldn't be that easy just to set up a bank account. I know that if I want to go to a bank account in the U.S., there's an entire set of documents that you need. If I wanted to set up one here in Russia, again, you have to have a great number of different documents. So tell us something about that.
This is very interesting because PayPal has, again, I'm picking on PayPal for a reason, because that seems to be the common denominator here. PayPal has to adhere to each country's rules, of course, financial conduct rules. So in the United States, if you wanted to receive money via PayPal, PayPal has to go through a certain process in order to verify who you are, your bank account, that you're a credible person. They will do the same thing in Europe because Europeans have to adhere to the same sort of rules that the Americans do. Now, there are other countries where all these rigorous examination investigation is not necessary because they don't have to, then they don't do it. So it would be easier to open a PayPal account and receive greater amount of money without being properly assessed and checked in some countries. And those people from those countries are taking advantage of the ease by which they can open those accounts and receive money.
Is there any recourse for some of these people? Have there been any cases of anybody going to jail?
Not that I know of. I would love to see one, but not that I know of.
Is there anybody internationally that would be looking for these people? Some type of, internet?
Maybe one day, Jay, we'll have an internet police. Not quite yet. No, because I think the amounts are relatively low to sort of bother any particular police force. And from what I know, there hasn't been any coordinated action by Interpol or any other international policing organization, unfortunately.